station at the Quaker Inn on the campus of the University of Akron in downtown Akron, Ohio. The radio broadcast is underwritten by Cascade Audi. Today's program is generously sponsored by Buckingham Doolittle and Burroughs. Additionally, we would like to recognize the Akron Beacon Journal, Ohio.com, for being a legacy sponsor for the Akron Roundtable. Please mark your calendar now for our next regularly scheduled roundtable, which will occur in 2 weeks. We invite you to join us on Thursday, August 21st, when the Akron Roundtable will present United States Congresswoman Marsha Fudge, who will present on the topic, "We are all in this together." To make a reservation for any of the Akron Roundtable luncheons or to purchase a subscription series, please visit our website at akronroundtable.org. We also invite you to join our group on Facebook. Today, the Akron Roundtable is pleased to present Dr. Scott Scarborough, the new president of the University of Akron, who will present on the topic, "The First 100 Days." I will now invite Jonathan Padlock, Vice Chair of the Board of Trustees for the University of Akron, to introduce our speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. And I can tell you that I am genuinely delighted to have the opportunity to introduce today's speaker. And the reason for that elation is really pretty simple to understand. That as a member of the university's Presidential Advisory and Screening Committee, I'm really happy that that job is finished. As you know, it was almost a year ago when Luis Forenza announced his intention to retire at the end of the academic year, and that announcement initiated a search process for his replacement. And while that's not unusual in higher education circles, but certainly something different than what you experience in your professions, that process often takes the better part of a year to complete. Not that we didn't put the time to good use. There were a number of individuals, many of whom are in the audience today, representing various constituency groups in the university community that provided valuable input to that process, and we appreciate their assistance. And mindful of our obligation to follow Ohio's open records regulations and our own university rules, we were diligent in our process and our search. It was long, it was arduous, and I have to admit, at times it was painful. So much so that I often found myself thinking of that old sports adage, no pain, no gain. Well, when this afternoon's session is complete, I hope you'll agree with me that the gain, represented by our new president, was worth any pain that we endured in that search process. Our speaker today, Dr. Scott Scarborough, is the 16th president of the University of Akron. He was unanimously elected by the University Board of Trustees on May 8th, and he assumed his responsibilities on July 1st. Dr. Scarborough brings to Akron almost 3 decades of service in both the private and public sectors. Prior to joining the University of Akron, Dr. Scarborough was Provost and Executive Vice President for Academic Affairs at the University of Toledo, where he also served as Senior Vice President and Executive Director of Toledo's Medical Center. Dr. Scarborough's higher education career includes positions as Executive Vice President for Operations at DePaul University and Vice President for Business Affairs and Chief Financial Officer at the University of Texas at Tyler. From 2001 to 2003, he served as Chief Executive Officer of the Texas Treasury Safekeeping Trust Company, and early in his career, Dr. Scarborough was an audit supervisor for the accounting firm of Coopers Lybrand, KPMG. All of his degrees, a PhD in strategic management, an MBA, and a bachelor's degree in accounting, were earned at institutions in the University of Texas system. Dr. Scarborough and his wife Tammy, who by the way is with us today, have a 6-year-old daughter named Samantha. His adult son Spencer resides in Austin, Texas. Please welcome me, and I'm truly happy in welcoming the president of the University of Akron, Scott Scarborough.
Hello, everyone. What a marvelous assembly of people that we have today. It is truly a delight to be with you. I want to begin by thanking the Akron Roundtable for inviting me to speak. It's truly an honor to be here. I want to thank all of you for coming, particularly members of our Board of Trustees, representatives of the city and county government, and our community's business and civic leaders. Thank you all for coming. Forgive me for not recognizing you individually. If we did that, we'd be here all day. I would most certainly miss someone. So please accept this blanket acknowledgement and my sincere thanks for being here. I do want to make one exception, however, and that is to thank John Pavlov for that very kind introduction. Because thanks to John's introduction and the Roundtable providing biographies on the table, I don't have to cover that material. Because contrary to the Hollywood characterization of native Texans as being brash and boastful, most of us were not reared to be that way. In fact, I can remember my dad on several occasions saying, hey look, if you got it, people will know it. You don't need to talk about it. In fact, he had some pretty colorful expressions for people who thought a little bit too highly of themselves. You may have heard some of these expressions. He'd say about such a person, he's all hat, no cattle. Or he might say, she thinks the sun comes up every day just to hear her crow. Or my personal favorite, being an ex-financial guy, he used to say, I wish I could buy him what he's really worth, sell him for what he thinks he's worth. Big profit, big profit. But I do understand on an occasion like this, people are interested in one's background. So let me share with you what is most important about my background. I am the grandson of a pharmacist who made a life for himself by graduating from a public university. I am the son of an English teacher who achieved her dream of becoming an educator by graduating from a public university. And just like many of you in the room today, I am the graduate of a public university. I'm a big believer that public higher education really matters. It changes lives for the better. And it is the key to what we call the American dream, an American reality. Public higher education is the key to our country because what makes our country special is that anybody can become anything. If you study hard, if you work hard, if you do the right things, that's the American dream. And that's the way the American dream should always be, and the American way of life should be. Anybody can become anything if they do the right things. Public universities became the instrument by which the American dream is achieved beginning in the late 1800s and continuing to this day. And with each passing generation, public higher education has become even more important. Very early in my career, I decided to make higher education my life's work because I saw the difference it was making in the lives of families, much like my own. But my journey to a career in higher education is what many would call non-traditional. I didn't know what I wanted to study in college, so my dad decided to give me some direction. He said, I think you ought to major in accounting. Now he said that because he knew I could get a job after I graduated, and I did. After graduation, I went to work for one of the big 8 accounting firms, and while I was there, one of the partners volunteered me to teach at the local Catholic college at night. When I got inside the classroom, that's when I discovered what I wanted to do with my life. I absolutely loved being in the college classroom. I loved working with college students. I loved taking something highly complex and breaking it down in ways that they could understand and apply in their lives. I decided that I wanted to work in higher education, but I really didn't have the academic credentials to do so at that time. So I had to find a very creative path to a long-term career. I left public accounting and took a job at the University of Texas System and eventually became the chief business officer at one of their 16 universities. Along the way, I added an MBA and a PhD in strategic management. So when I finally got the academic credentials I needed, I began to teach 2 classes per quarter while working during the day as a university administrator. My career in higher education has been an amazing journey, from chief business officer to state treasurer, from state treasurer to chief operating officer, from COO to CEO of an academic medical center, and from CEO in healthcare to provost at the University of Toledo. And now, from provost to president of the University of Akron. Pretty incredible journey, isn't it? The wonderful thing about this journey is that I've gotten the chance to experience higher education in almost every way imaginable. As an undergraduate student, student body president, graduate student, doctoral candidate, as an adjunct faculty member, as an associate professor, as a researcher, author, and of course, as an administrator in many different parts of the university. And I have enjoyed every single bit of it. The only role that I really never fully experienced is that of student athlete. But I did try. I want you to know that. In fact, I tried out during my freshman year for the varsity tennis team at Trinity University in San Antonio. After one day of practice, I went up to the coach and I said, "Hey, what do you think?" He kind of looked at me and he said, "I think you ought to focus on your studies." So that was the end of that. That was probably good advice, and from there, it has led me to this moment. On May 8th of this year, the trustees of the University of Akron gave me the chance of a lifetime, and that is to become the 16th president of this great university. And over the past 5 weeks, I've had the opportunity to study it closely. What a jewel of a university that you have in this city. One with a great history and one with a great future. You know the story, but it's a great story. Bookdale College, the forerunner of the University of Akron, founded in 1870, the same year that Dr. B.F. Goodrich brought rubber manufacturing to Akron. In 1899, graduates from Bookdale College were staffing his rubber laboratories. 10 years later, the first college courses in rubber chemistry in the U.S. were being taught at Bookdale College. In the 20s and 30s, hourly workers flocked to Akron to work in the tire factories, and the Municipal University of Akron supplied the Big Four, Goodrich, Goodyear, Firestone, and General, with chemists, accountants, engineers, and managers. Graduates also became lawyers, nurses, teachers, and other professionals, and these people worked for the organizations that flourished alongside the great rubber companies. During World War II, Akron's rubber industry and its university became the epicenter of the nation's efforts to create synthetic rubber, which was highly important to the war effort. In fact, according to some historians, this project was second only to the Manhattan Project in terms of its strategic importance to winning the war. After the war, factory workers saw many of their sons return home and enroll in college under the new GI Bill. And these students were often the first generation in their families to go to college. Now, as you know, the 70s and 80s, they were tough. The tire factories began to close, but the region's polymer industry arose from the ashes of the shuttered tire factories. And that rise could not have happened without the research being done at Akron University. Today, the University of Akron continues to explore new avenues of research in biomedical and advanced materials, all to give Akron a stronger footing and a brighter future in today's global economy. This university continues to produce the professionals who rear their families in this community, people who work hard and save what they can to give their children a shot at a college education and the American dream. Now, this is my 6th week on the job. During the first 100 days, I'm trying to accomplish 5 things. First, I'm trying to get to know my direct reports and the key stakeholders who love this university. I need to make sure the university has the right people in the right seats and that they practice great teamwork. Second, I'm familiarizing myself with the university's existing strategic plan, organizational culture, and market position. The university has a strategic plan. It's called Vision 2020. It's a good strategic plan. It focuses the university on accomplishing 5 important outcomes: academic and inclusive excellence, globally relevant and distinctive programs, interdisciplinary clusters of innovation, connectivity for economic vitality, and campus and community enhancement. I'm also getting to know the university's culture, which is important for any president to understand. I think you know this, but the academic culture, it's a little different from the business culture. The academic culture is created and sustained by people who are scientists and scholars. They are what author Richard Florida calls the creative class of modern society. He describes them as people who love the challenge of their work, the flexibility of their work, the stability of their jobs, and the respect of their peers more than anything else. They're motivated primarily by the success of their students, their academic accomplishments, and their program's reputation. The academic culture most resembles that of, say, a large law firm or an advertising agency. Highly intelligent and creative professionals who form a type of partnership with the common goal of advancing their fields while teaching their students. As you know, building and sustaining effective partnerships takes a lot of time, a lot of dialogue, and oftentimes compromise. That's the academic culture. All presidents have to learn how to work within that culture in order to get things done. It's not easy. You never achieve 100% consensus, but you have to learn how to get things done while respecting the scientists and scholars who constitute the academic core of the university. The third thing I'm trying to accomplish during the first 100 days is to get a good read on the university's financial condition. These are tough times for public universities all across the country, particularly in the Midwest and the Northeast of the United States. Per student, state appropriations are declining. Federal research funding is declining. The number of students graduating from high school is declining. The number of competitors is increasing. Student debt is increasing. The default rate on student loans is increasing. Financial aid eligibility is getting stricter. Public universities are more highly leveraged. Cash flows are insufficient to maintain facilities and equipment. Fixed costs are high. Trustees are concerned. But other than that, everything's great. In July of this year, both Standard & Poor's and Moody's issued negative outlooks for public higher education. In particular, Moody's predicted that regional public universities like Akron and Kent State, Cleveland State, and Youngstown State will struggle to achieve and sustain financial stability. Last month, however, both Moody's and Fitch described our university's financial outlook as stable. Now, they did so because we made it clear that the University of Akron will find ways to move forward despite demographic declines and financial challenges. We said we would become more strategically focused by maximizing our strengths. We told them that we would become more efficient. We said we would leverage existing and emerging technologies to improve academic quality and increase productivity. We said that we would grow markets and places and programs that we've not recently emphasized. We said we would focus research in areas that would make a difference in our regional economy. And we said that we understood we would have to stop doing some things. Not because we want to, but because we have to. We told Moody's and Fitch that we would be a disciplined organization with disciplined people engaged in disciplined thought and actions. All of this in pursuit of the noble missions of public higher education, teaching, research, and service to this community. The good news is that we have a lot of strengths at the University of Akron on which to build. A beautifully rebuilt main campus, proximity to a very nice downtown area and business district, 5 satellite locations, proximity to Cleveland, strong programs in polymer science, engineering, applied political science, intellectual property law, and several others, a national championship soccer program, 92% of engineering graduates who have good jobs within 6 months of graduation, graduates in education and nursing with licensure passage rates far above the national averages, and graduates on average who have lower student loan debt than their counterparts at all other Ohio public universities. A recent study by Affordable Colleges Online says that the University of Akron has the best return on investment of any public university in Northeast Ohio. Now, these are all great strengths upon which to build a great university. The fourth thing that I need to accomplish in the first 100 days is to assess and to tweak the management structure and to communicate performance expectations for leadership. That has been accomplished. As you leave today, on the table to my left, you will find a handout. It lists the leadership and management principles to which we are holding ourselves accountable. This is a document that I have distributed to management teams for over 25 years. The purpose of the document is to do three things. First, to articulate management principles that work. Second, to articulate principles that make teamwork effective and going to work productive and fun. Third, to communicate performance expectations against which leaders and managers of the university will be evaluated. Now, as you can see, this document contains many bulleted points. However, the national media, interestingly, focused on just one. It was under the header on page 2 of the document entitled Big Mistakes. The bullet point reads, "It's a mistake if one fails to pick up trash." A national reporter called me and asked me, "Do you really expect people who report to you to pick up trash when they see it?" I responded, "Yes, and I expect the same thing for myself." 30 years ago, one of my mentors told me how he selected leaders for his church. He said he watched and noticed which of his members stopped to pick up litter in the church's parking lot, sidewalks, and hallways. He said it was his most reliable indicator of effective leadership. Over the years, I have come to understand the wisdom of that practice. The person who is too important to pick up trash is probably too important to help a student who is struggling to understand an important concept. The person who's too important to pick up trash is probably too important to help a colleague who is struggling to overcome an important research challenge. The person who is too important to do the little things is probably too important to do the big things well. Give me a group of people who are humble enough, committed enough, and care enough to pick up trash when they see it, and I'll show you a group of people who are capable of accomplishing anything. The fifth and final thing I'm trying to do in the first 100 days is to define and communicate what it means to be successful and to win at the University of Akron. This needs to be clear to everyone. The old saying goes, what gets measured gets done. And a new leader needs to identify the metrics that matter most to the organization and what one needs to do to improve performance. Winning at the University of Akron means students who are graduating and accomplishing their dreams. It means employers who are happy with our graduates. It means research that is invigorating economic development and enhancing the quality of life of people in this region. It means sports teams that are competitive and student athletes who represent us proudly as they learn and practice the power of teamwork. I tell everyone, teamwork, both inside and outside the university, is the key to accomplishing all of these things. When I think of teamwork, I think of the rowing teams in the Summer Olympics, those long, slender boats slicing through the waters as oars rise and fall in almost perfect unison. That's my vision of teamwork. Trustees and administrators working in unison, administrators and faculty collaborating as one, faculty, staff, and students in a rhythmic pursuit of winning outcomes for themselves and the community, industry, and university leaders rowing in sync toward the finish lines of academic quality, economic development, and economic sustainability. I believe all of this is possible if we practice great teamwork. My time is almost up, but I do want to make one final point, and that is, on my first day on the job on July 1st, someone told me that our students and alumni were gathering at a local watering hole to watch Team USA play in the World Cup. Former Zip soccer star DeAndre Yedlin was part of the team, which was very exciting. I thought it would be great to go there, hang out with students, watch the game, and see what happens. Now, when I got there, it was packed. You could barely squeeze in the establishment, and I was a little out of place. It was 90 degrees. I was there in a suit and tie. Needless to say, it was hot. It was getting near the end of the game, and I was kind of making my way to the door when all of a sudden you could hear a few students start to chant something. And in this steady, rhythmic form, it got louder and louder. And I have to tell you, it was exhilarating to feel the energy and the conviction with which these young people were chanting. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. Louder. I believe that we will win. Now, to win, you have to believe you will win. And I believe that if we do the right things at the University of Akron, if we elevate teamwork, if we forge the right strategies, if we commit ourselves unreservedly and unselfishly to the achievement of our goals, people inside and outside our university will begin to chant, I believe that we will win. You'll hear it in our playing fields, in our classrooms, in our labs, in our boardrooms, in the community centers, in our downtown offices, in the homes of our alumni donors, parents of students. I believe that we will win. Why? Because public higher education is too important. Too important to the future of our children. Too important for our country for us to have any other outcome. I believe that we will win. And with the help of people like you in this room, the University of Akron will win. Thank you for your attention.
Scarborough has graciously agreed to respond to written questions from the audience. Mr. David Hunter, who is the board program chairperson, will respond to the questions that you put in writing. So if you have any questions, please write them out and someone will gather them up. Thank you.
Dr. Scarborough, we'll start with this opening question. Your earlier remarks suggest maybe the answer to this question. But if you look across the country, there's a broad array of college and university approaches to academics, athletics, and performing arts. Some schools put almost all their emphasis completely on academics. Others try to establish a more balanced approach, recognizing that both the performing arts stage and the athletic field can be an incubator for learning just as much as a classroom. What is the proper approach forward for the University of Akron in this regard?
You know, it's a great question. Academics, athletics, the performing arts, they've been a part of the human spirit and therefore a part of the university campus for a long time. The challenge is to find the right balance. And every institution has to struggle with that balance. I remember when I was at the University of Texas at Tyler, we did not have an athletics program. And we were only a junior, senior, and master's level institution. And during that period of time, we decided to add the freshman and the sophomore levels to the university. So we began to do some marketing research, and what we found was students would, coming directly out of high school, would not consider our university because they viewed our not having an athletics program as an indicator that we weren't a serious university. Okay? Now, isn't that interesting? Now, it doesn't make it right or wrong, but it's the perception that you have to deal with. So athletics is seen by the public either overtly or subconsciously as an indicator that you're a serious university and you're committed to this part of service to the community. The university mission has always been this tripartite mission of teaching, research, and service. And University Intercollegiate Athletics is seen to be a part of both the teaching mission and the service mission. There are only probably a dozen intercollegiate athletic programs in the country that are self-sustaining economically. They're the Ohio States, the University of Michigan, the the University of Texas. You know the programs, which means all of the other programs in the country charge a student fee, and it's the students are ultimately paid for the intercollegiate athletic programs at most universities. But they vote to do that, and you know, having played sports growing up, and probably most of the people in this room have played some level of sports, you do learn things about life through participating in sports that are critical to your success as you experience life. You know, I can remember you know, playing football, being knocked to the ground, and the coach saying, "You got to get up." Now, how many times have all of us been in this room and our profession's been knocked to the ground, and you're reminded of that time when your coach said, "It's time to get up." So the key is to find the right balance, and working with the trustees, working with the community, we'll try to find that at the University of Akron.
As you've indicated in your remarks, you've only been on the job a little more than 5 weeks, but based on your early observations, can you identify for us what you've seen to be the single most formidable challenge facing the University of Akron?
You know, for all public universities in the country, the greatest challenge is the changing economic model for public higher education. For many reasons, most of which are very good reasons, per student state appropriations are on a steady linear decline in this country. Just to give you an indicator, in the 1970s, the average per student state appropriation was about $10,000 per student. So that's how much state government was subsidizing many of your educations, my education. Today that number is closer to $6,500, okay? So it's not that people are expecting less from universities, they're just expecting you to do much more with far less. And so that's the challenge. And so for a faculty member who started, you know, working in the 60s and 70s, in their mind it was a lot more fun then, because there were a lot more resources to be able to do some things. Now, what universities have done to compensate is to raise tuition and fees. But the reality is that universities have raised fees, but only a small percentage of student actually pays the full sticker price. Okay? So it appears that tuition has been on a great increase, but in reality, the net tuition price, the price that students actually pay, has been a much more modest increase, which means we haven't been able to make up for what we've lost in terms of state funding. And again, just to make the point clear, it's not that legislators don't value public higher education. It just means that there have been other priorities like Medicaid and prison systems and K through 12 schools, and they're just difficult choices to make, and they're having to balance the budget. And the thought process has been that you could simply transfer the cost to the students and their parents, as tuition was very, very low for such a long time. But again, as you do that, there's a point at which students and their families can't afford it. There's a point at which taking on any more debt does not make sense. So it's forcing universities now to finally deal with the reality that the fundamental economic model has to change, that there has to be a rebalancing of the teaching, research, and service that is economically sustainable, affordable to the state, affordable to students and parents, so that it has a sustainable future. And we're at that point where those new economic models are being forged, and it also happens to be occurring at a time when competition within higher education is increasing. From for-profit higher education institutions, from flagship institutions that are expanding their borders, and from something called a MOOC, a massive open online course. So all different types of competitive pressures are also being brought to bear, which is the reason why I think so many boards of trustees are looking for people with kind of non-traditional paths who can help navigate the university through this reprioritizing and rebalancing. So that's the challenge that we face, that's the challenge that all of public higher education faces.
One member of our audience poses this question: Do you think the University of Akron can play a key role in attracting and retaining young talent in Akron? How?
Yeah, I think universities are tremendous assets in terms of attracting talent to the region and retaining that talent. We don't do it alone. We work in partnership with many of the people in this room, with county leaders, municipal leaders, with business leaders, civic leaders. There's a great organization that I became very familiar with in the last couple of years called CEOs for Cities, and they've done a number of research studies to say, you know, what are the cities that are growing economically and from a quality of life perspective? What are they doing together to attract and retain young people? There's great studies that have been done. One thing is to make the city very diverse, very open to all types of people. Another key factor is to make the city fun and cool. You know, those are the cool cities, are the cities that are growing. And so universities are key aspects of creating that climate, but more importantly, with partnering with all of you and the people to create that environment that attracts and retains young people.
This next question may relate to the vision you're staking out for us here. You obviously bring a lot of skills to the job, including your extensive financial background. Do you have any concern that your extensive financial experience may be an impediment to your ability to embrace an ambitious vision for the University of Akron?
You know, that's a great question. And I was with the College of Arts and Sciences leadership yesterday, and we talked about this a lot. And I told them flat out, people think I'm a numbers guy. Actually, the numbers person in my family is my wife who's sitting right here, okay? Numbers are important because being able to read numbers tells you something about the organization. But what is most important is the mission and the strategy that is sustainable, okay? So we talked with the leadership of Arts and Sciences yesterday is what kind of university do we want to be? What is the relevant university today? What is the university that is sustainable in the future? What does that look like in the humanities and the natural sciences and the performing arts? Then once we have the model of what we think is relevant, then the question becomes, is it sustainable? And that's where the numbers come in. But the strategy leads the numbers. The numbers don't lead the strategy. They confirm the sustainability of the strategy. So that's the reason, frankly, I got my undergraduate degree in accounting, but I got my doctoral degree in strategic management because the more my career progressed, the more I understood that without a great strategy, the numbers mean nothing.
Here's a question that hints of collaboration. Many of the graduates of Akron Public Schools struggle with poverty. Should the University of Akron consider a slight tuition incentive for Akron Public School graduates?
The answer would be yes. I think I have been told that such incentives do exist already. In fact, I think the university's acquisition of a high school on its campus is tied to the creation of a scholarship fund for students in the Akron area. So I'm pretty sure that we're already doing some significant things that are worth applauding. But yeah, we've got to take care of the people of this region because the people of this region take care of the university.
In light of recent local developments, this question is not unexpected. When will we get a new basketball arena?
Well, that's a great question. We're already working on a Plan B. The people who put together Plan A should be applauded for trying to come up with an approach that would work. It didn't work. Not all Plan A's work, which is the reason why you should always have a Plan B and a Plan C. Our trustees and our university are committed in excellence in all that we do. One of the things that we have to address is the facilities for the basketball team that has a great tradition and history at this university. And so we'll begin working in a meeting, I think, that John Pavloff will be a part of in the next few days to put together a Plan B. And we'll see whether it leads to the construction of a new facility or the renovation of an existing one. But just like we do for our academic programs, we'll look to make sure that our athletic programs have the appropriate facilities that allow them to excel in what they do.
We have time for 2 more questions. Here's a more difficult one. Describe the similarities and differences between public higher education and healthcare.
You know, that's another great question. So whoever asked that question has got a good mind about this. 20 years ago, I worked at a university whose president came out of healthcare. He was a medical ethicist, interestingly. And he was the first person that I ever heard, and this was 20 years ago, who said to me, if you want to know what's going to happen in public higher education, just look to healthcare, because healthcare is a 10-year leading indicator of what's going to happen in public higher education. That was 20 years ago that he said that to me. I made note of it, and I thought, okay, I'm going to watch this and see what happens. 20 years later, I am amazed at the similarities. Having had the opportunity early in my career to work on the financial side of healthcare, and then later in my career to work on the operations and administrative side of healthcare, during that time I saw something emerge called value-based purchasing. So for those of you in healthcare, you know what I'm talking about. But essentially what it is the federal government has stepped in and basically said, in the name of pursuing quality, we're going to tie your funding to the achievement of certain quality metrics. If you don't hit those quality metrics, you don't get the funding. Okay? Now that's pretty tough. And it's hard to argue with. But the reality is that about 50% of the hospitals are going to get lower amounts of reimbursement than they did in the past. So it's also a way to contain healthcare costs at the federal level. It's very clever. Okay? Same thing, I think, is about to happen in higher education. President Obama's come out with something called the College Scoreboard, okay, scorecard. And eventually there's going to be the tying of eligibility for federal financial aid to those scorecard metrics. So I'm just using one example of many that could be offered to suggest that healthcare and higher education actually have a lot in common.
We'll close with this question. Given your extensive experience in higher education and based on your observations, is there any other university in the country that you particularly admire that's doing it right and can serve as an aspirational model for the University of Akron?
The short answer is no, because the University of Akron needs to be what it needs to be, not what someone else is doing. That's been one of the problems with higher education is everybody, they call it the Carnegie creep. Everyone is seeking to be, the next Harvard University. So they're taking what Harvard and Stanford and Yale and MIT, what they're doing, and they're trying to copy it. The one problem is those universities don't have the endowments of Harvard and Yale and MIT and Stanford. So you can't be that. The resource base can't support that. So what you need to be is what your region needs you to be. If this region needs the university to help with economic redevelopment, the university needs to do that. If this region needs to produce nurses and business people and lawyers and engineers and scientists, then that's what we need to focus on. If this institution needs, or this region needs us to serve the community in any particular way, we need to be that university. People are always wanting to change the world, but I always remind them, you change the world first by changing your region. Take care of your home base and the world will take care of itself. So, there are great universities, though, that you can learn from, and that's what you try to do. You look at what Central Michigan is doing with success coaches in terms of helping underprepared students get to graduation and say, hey, there's a program we could emulate that fits with what we need to do in this region. There are universities like Northeastern University in Boston have a great internship and cooperative program that puts students into real-world work situations that give them real-world experience, but also create great connections that lead to job offers and career opportunities. So there are elements of programs that you piece together in a unique way to define what the University of Akron needs to be. And that's how we will approach the strategic planning that we're doing. Today's overview was really on the first 100 days. The second 100 days is to look at our colleges and say, what are their unique plans to become this region's premier university? Now, one person asked me, when you use words like that, it doesn't sound like you're very cooperative. It sounds like you have a competitive spirit. I said, not at all. We have great relationships, and we want to partner and collaborate in ways that will serve this region. But the way that we all do that, all the institutions, is to be the best version of themselves. So when we speak about winning, when we speak about succeeding and constantly improving, it's to be the best version of ourselves, so that when we do align and cooperate with others, we're all doing what we need to do to really serve this region. So they're great leaders in higher education. Some of them are here today. Enjoyed the opportunity to meet them. And let me just say, since I think this is the last question, we're enjoying the opportunity to meet all of you too. So thank you so much.
Thank you for being with us today. We really enjoyed your presentation, and we look forward to your tenure here as the new president of the University of Akron. On behalf of the Akron Roundtable, we would like to present to you the celebratory work of art, which was created specifically for the Akron Roundtable by local artist Don Jerome. Thank you so much, Liz. Thank you again. Welcome. We invite the audience to join us at the Quaker Station in downtown Akron on Thursday, August 21st, 2014, when the Roundtable will present United States Congresswoman Marcia Fudge, who will present on the topic, "We are all in this together." Thank you for being with us today, and have a great day. Thank you.